Okay, let's get started. And a very warm welcome to the 107th Security Thought Leadership webinar. And the idea of thought leadership is that we critique, we think differently, we question what's going on today in order that we may get a better type of provision tomorrow. And all these topics that we choose come out of issues that have cropped up either in society, in debate around security, or in these webinars. And this is exactly one of those. And it's one that's been at the forefront of concern, both in wider society and specifically in the security world. In the security world, sexism is an issue, of course, because of the male-dominated and rather macho culture, which is sometimes played up in adverts about what security is about. And yet we're hearing that things are changing and it's getting better. Well, is it? And what should we be doing? And what do we need to look for? And what do we need to think about making sure changes as we move forward? Well, once again, I've got three expert panelists from different parts of the world coming at this subject completely different angles. In a second, I will invite each of them to introduce themselves. And once each of them have done that, as is our custom, I will invite them all, each of them to make their opening statement, 3 minutes, when they get to say whatever they wish to about this subject. Now, while they're doing that, I would encourage you to get your questions in using the question and answer button at the bottom of your screen. And if you get your questions in early, I will endeavour to incorporate them in the ensuing discussion. So without further ado then, let's meet our panellists. And first of all, let's go all the way over to the United States and meet Angela. Angela, good morning there, good afternoon here. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Good morning, Dr. Gill. Thank you so much. It's an honor to serve on such a prestigious panel with some really outstanding fellow panelists today. My name is Angela Osborne, and I'm the Associate Vice President for Risk and Emergency Management for Guidepost Solutions. Guidepost is a security consulting firm. We specialize in monitoring compliance investigations and security technology solutions. Today, I am not representing Guidepost. So I'm speaking on my own. The views I will share today are not the views of Guidepost, and naturally. I started out my career working in the Middle East, actually, in the area of Abu Dhabi. I worked in the energy sector. Mostly I traveled around doing physical security assessments of power plants and well sites, so pretty industrial to start off. I came back to the U.S., worked for NASA Goddard Space Flight Center, and then also to the Department of Commerce for the U.S., working in the Office of Cybersecurity. And then from there, I came over to a Guidepost. I'm very active within ASIS, which is how I know Dr. Gill. I used to be the chairman of the Young Professionals Council, and today I serve on the Professional Standards Board. I did my master's in security studies from Georgetown University in the School of Foreign Service, and I'm really excited to be talking about this subject today. I think it's a very important topic for our society and particularly for our field in security.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. And let's go from America over to Kenya. And Monica, can you please introduce yourself?
Thank you, Professor Martin, for this opportunity. I must say I'm really excited to be here. My name is Monica Kimeu, and I am the Secretary General of Women in Safety Excellence, which is a premier association of women in security who've been inspired to bridge the gap of women in our sector. And we started in 2019. Professionally, I am a security trainer. I have been in the sector for more than 12 years. Seeing different people enter the academia and take programs in security, and marginally women are largely not picking up the numbers. And over years, I've been asking myself why. And this is what has really inspired me to really work with women and find out why can't we come up and take up these security programs. I'm also a managing director of a company called More and More Concept. I'm very good at curriculum development and keen on training and development in various organizations. I sit at the Governing Council of the Protective and Safety Association of Kenya, and I am proud to be in this webinar this afternoon. Interesting topic, Martin. People really avoid this topic, so I am challenged. I am excited. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Monica. And finally, to meet Sue. Sue, back in the UK.
Thanks very much, Martin. And again, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm Sue Fish, and for over 30 years, I was a police officer, retiring a little while ago now as being Chief Constable of Nottinghamshire Police. And during my time as a police officer, Nottinghamshire introduced misogyny as a hate crime as the first force in the country to do so. We also brought in the first menopause policy. And since I retired from policing, I've set up my own business, Starfish Consulting, where I focus particularly on equality, diversity, inclusion work, and continue to campaign for misogyny as a hate crime to be rolled out. And I've recently been appointed by Menopause in the Workplace as part of their independent panel for workplace accreditation, which is an exciting and different venture as well. So delighted to be here and looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, we always get 3 expert panelists, no exception, of course. One just little link I ought to say that they've each got with the Oscars is Andrew is actually a winner of the Outstanding Young Security Professional in the United States. Monica is a judge, has been a judge of the Oscars in Kenya, and Sue has hosted the UK Oscars award ceremony. So all got good links. Okay, without further ado, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll ask for our opening statement. Just to remind you, if you can get your questions in early using the question and answer button at the bottom of your screen, we'll come to you as soon as we can. So Angela, let's come back to you then. 3 minutes, if you will, Angela, your thoughts on this subject matter.
Well, I have to admit, Dr. Gill, this is a topic that I really had no intention of speaking on. Years ago, if someone had asked me to speak about sexism, I probably would have declined politely. At the time, it was before Me Too, I will say, and there was a lot of focus on trying to blend in to a more kind of male-dominated security field and not to kind of show myself as being too feminine, too focused on kind of social topics, really focusing on more of the hardcore security, practicalities, the work of security. My intention was not to be viewed as kind of more female in the sector. And I think that was the view of a lot of women at the time, actually. I remember early on in my career, there was a question of whether women in security was a needed organization to have within ASIS as a council. There were some women who thought, no, I don't want to be a part of a separate group. I just want to be part of the whole ASIS sector. And I can certainly understand that. At the time, I was working in the Middle East. And certainly, working in the Gulf region, I saw quite a lot of need for a group like Women in Security to become more involved, to get more women involved in the security sector. And so I think, kind of my views on the topic are kind of tempered by that. I've had a lot of international experiences working in Europe, Middle East, North America, and Africa as well. And so I think that that's kind of influenced kind of my perception on this topic. I grew up with a mother who was working in marketing, and she told me some just incredible stories that today is just astonishing that actually took place in the workplace. So clearly there is a significant progress that we've made on this topic. I find today that sexism is more subtle in nature. It is kind of the concept of having a female colleague take notes in the meeting and just expecting that she will take notes. It's the concept of really females sometimes having a challenge in getting to the next level, perhaps, coming across as too assertive, maybe too aggressive, taking on some of those more masculine qualities. I know in my work, I just want to preface that I had been mentored by both men and women. I found a lot of support within the security field. I would say my experiences with sexism are significantly different than what people like my mother experienced in the past. So I think that we've definitely made a lot of progress. I think that there is a lot of work to do, and I think that we're starting to acknowledge some of the subtle realities of sexism in the workplace. And you might ask the question, why is this important for me? Why is this a topic that I care about? At the end of the day, I find as security professionals, we are service providers in a way. We all have clients. Whether our clients are internal colleagues, whether we work as an internal security team, whether we are consultants or we are security integrators or manufacturers, we have very diverse clients that we're working with, trying to enhance their lives through security. And my concern is that it's possible you might be unwittingly turning these people off, alienating people by actions you might not be aware of. And so I think the great thing about this topic is it's an opportunity for us to have a dialogue on it, to talk about it in a way where we don't call people out necessarily, we don't cancel people. We give people an opportunity to learn and to grow about the topic, because I truly believe that most of the issues with sexism have to do with miscommunication. I believe that many people are very well-intentioned, And sometimes that can come across in a way that turns people off. And I think if we can just kind of open the doors of communication, be candid about the topic, but also respectful, I think we can make a lot of progress, particularly in the security field. So again, I do want to preface that, while I'm not speaking for Guidepost today, my company in particular, I find, has been very supportive of me as a female working in the security sector. I find ASIS has made a lot of progress throughout the years. When you look at the leadership, I think that there's still a lot of work to be done, certainly. But I think the situation we have today, it's subtler. Pointing out these areas of improvement can be a challenge sometimes for people. But I'm really excited to hear the questions that we have today. And again, thanks to Dr. Gill for putting on this topic.
Thank you very much indeed, Angela. I'm going to quickly move on to say, Monica, let's have your opening statement, please. Monica.
Well, sexism is a very interesting topic. When I saw the invite, Martin, I was like, wow, these are things we don't talk about, yet we experience every day. It is a subtle discrimination that really undervalues and treats women in a different way, but very silently. And if we don't address it, then it really affects how women take up different roles and positions in the security space. From where I sit, from all phases of women participation in development, in all sectors, this is, and in this case, security, patriarchal cultural background has affected women participation and active engagement. And sexism is, in my view, a very significant factor. In Kenya, we have a very robust 2010 constitution that provides a powerful framework for addressing traditional perceptions and segregation of women, promoting their full contribution in every facet of development. Female representation in government and private institutions has only improved marginally, despite the fact that it is in the constitution that we should have at least a third represented of one gender in every leadership space. Why is this happening? That's the question. Is it that women are not educated? Is it that they don't have that capacity to come out and just showcase their prowess? In my view, I've come from a background where I'm a firstborn and I have been daddy's girl. He has always told me, there's nothing you can't do. And from that background, I've been able to really deal with the slow, soft nuances of you are a girl, you can't do this. And I will always question why. I mean, I have all what it takes. I can talk about it, I can read about it, I can be able to defend where I feel I'm not being given an equal chance. And I encourage my women folk out there that it is within your power to be able to notice when it happens and speak up about it, all right? In the field of security, this is a largely male-dominated area. And sometimes when you're a manager and you're addressing men, and sometimes uniformed men, you go there fearing and asking yourself, will they listen to me, all right? But again, if you have the right papers, you have the right, support system, this sexism in a way creates, if we are able to talk about it and not emphasize on it, then women are able to really come beyond the effects of the same. So what am I saying? I'm saying that the security space, despite being male-dominated, women are overcoming sexism. There are many factors that attribute to this disproportionate variance. However, in my view, sexism tops the list, but women are slowly, going above these nuances that make them not come out really in leadership positions. Thank you, Martin.
Monica, thank you very much indeed. And just to encourage everyone to use the question and answer button at the bottom of their screen, if you'd like to address a question. And as soon as we've heard from our third panelist, Sue, we'll come to you, the audience, for questions. Sue, so let's go back to the UK and invite Sue to make her opening statement. Sue, for those of you overseas, has been in the national press on this very topic. So a good person to say, Sue, your opening statement, please.
Thanks, Martin. And indeed, when Martin asked me to contribute, I thought, blimey, it's because I've been on the television and on the radio really quite a lot at the moment in the light of what's been happening and a really active debate and discussion, and really women finding, yet again, having to find their voice and to surprise some men, many men, about what it's like being a woman in the UK at the moment. And so I thought, when Martin asked me to contribute today, I thought I'd better just have a quick look at the security sector, and just to make sure I was up to date, because what I didn't say in my bio bit was for 3 years, I was the police liaison with the security sector. But I'm a couple of years out of date and thought I'd better refresh. So as we all do when we research things nowadays, we go onto Google, and Google didn't disappoint. The first item it produced, in my view, was a catastrophic PR fail, and at best a complete lack of judgment, understanding or insight into sexism. And I'm talking about the EC Council's LinkedIn poll that took place on the 9th of April this year. So I'm not talking about ancient history, I'm talking about this month, 10 days ago. So I guess probably it's no surprise to us that the security sector is not immune, but we knew that as an extension of the patriarchal society, which it doesn't really matter which part of the globe we live in or work in, but that is there and affects both structural and behavioural sexism. And also in the UK, we've had a website at the moment, which has been getting young people or asking young people to share their experience of sexual harassment, particularly in schools and at universities. It's called Everyone's Invited. And I was just wondering, what if there was Everyone's Invited for the security sector, what that would reveal? What would women be saying about what their real lived experience is at the hands of their colleagues in particular, or indeed sometimes their clients, or when they're at conferences or at trade shows? What would women be saying? And that sort of insight, I think, perhaps could be quite revealing. So what to do about it? And my sort of sense was, don't be drawn into parallels with other sectors that may seem similar, whether it's the policing or the military, because quite frankly, certainly in this country, they're hardly bastions of good practice, often with a toxic operational culture and an entitled or complacent culture at the top of each organisation. And there isn't much good practice, tactically quite often, but strategically no. And I think quite often tactical interventions, however well-intentioned, wither on the vine because the strategic framework isn't there. And one of my other reflections, having accepted Martin's invitation, was that this isn't women's responsibility to put it right, which is interesting. We're all women on the panel, and just seeing some of the people on the chat, yeah, there are men and women in the audience today. And but I would hazard a guess, you're probably not reflective of the gender balance in the sector, but I would stand to be corrected on that. So where are the men with the guts, the moral courage, the integrity? Because caring deeply simply isn't enough. The complicit silence of men does need to be broken. And I genuinely believe that this is a significant leadership issue. The whole cultural and structural basis of our security industry, I think, needs to change. Because as Monica was saying, things have progressed. Of course they've progressed, but not fast enough, and not enough to always have the trust and confidence of your staff and customers and peers. And don't be fooled or fobbed off by, we've got a woman on the board, we've got more women entrants than ever before, we're getting to a critical mass, oh, we've got compliant policies. Well, no one's ever complained to me about that, or no one's ever said that. I honestly believe this needs some radical reframing and rethinking if it's going to drive out sexism and generally be inclusive. There is, of course, a clear business case, as well as a moral imperative for doing this. So what do I think you need to do? Well, understand your issue to start off with and what you're trying to achieve, and get that buy-in at board level. As I said, it's a leadership issue. Be really clear about why you're doing it and what does success look like. And I have to say, from my own experience, doing the right thing is rarely easy, and frankly, it's never comfortable. It will take time, a great deal of openness, commitment, humility, and actually vulnerability. You'll get it wrong, you'll make mistakes, but through that there's learning. And I also would say that, you know, as I said at the beginning, we're having this conversation in the light of a horrific murder of a young woman. But she's a white middle-class woman. If you're a woman of color, if you have a disability, if you're Jewish or Muslim, you're not of a Christian heritage, or you're from the LGBTQ plus community, there is so much more to do. And I think therein lies an even bigger challenge. Thank you very much, Martin.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, excellent. And some really important issues here. And a sense clearly that although things have in some quarters been said to be getting better, it's clearly not right yet. So let's go to our first question. And let's go to Brian Sims first, and I'll come to you first, Angela. And it's a topic I think that you've been involved with in a way, Angela. Do you believe the security sector has done enough to actively promote career paths for women? If not, what needs to be done and by whom? And I wonder whether I could focus you in on particularly what needs to be done, Angela, and by whom. First, Angela first.
Well, it's an interesting question. Certainly, as Sue mentioned, we do have more women in security than we probably ever had, in the past. And certainly that is progress. But the question is that enough progress? I find, when you look at it, it's really more of a systemic issue. If we want more women involved in the sector, we have to do things to encourage women to become involved. I think back to not that long ago, I was at a town hall meeting for a large security organization, and I raised the question of, why we only had one woman on a board of directors when we were promised kind of a lot more inclusivity and diversity. While we did get some geographic diversity from the gender side, it really went down quite a bit, actually. And I was kind of rebuffed, for asking the question. I went to go talk to the organizers after, to ask, kind of what their plans were to make some improvements to get more women involved in the leadership perspective. Because if we're going to have real change, what we really need is more women in leadership roles. To push the change forward. At the end of the day, it's less of a grassroots problem. I think you need people at the top to really make things happen. And I was kind of brushed off there as well. It's kind of a room full of security professionals, I have to admit, and it's something that really just stuck with me. I thought it was a legitimate question, but I was told that diversity and inclusion can make people feel alienated, the terms. Certain people in the room might have felt alienated by my question. I think at the end of the day, we have to ask those questions. We have to push. We have to put ourselves in uncomfortable situations sometimes in order to really make a progress. And it's interesting because this particular organization then did start the next year a very robust program on diversity and inclusion. But at the time, it was not perceived well. I think, really it's about how do we open up those leadership roles for women? I was talking with a council within ASIS, now called Communities, of course. And I asked, why don't you have any women in your leadership roles? It just seems quite strange that you don't have any. And they said, well, we didn't have any women apply. And that seems to be kind of the topic that comes up when we talk about women in leadership roles. Well, they didn't apply. Well, there are a lot of reasons why that might be the case. It might not be marketed well to women. Women might not be able to see themselves in those roles. I had a young female colleague who reached out to me to say, hey, do you think that I should apply for this award, for young professionals? And I said, absolutely, you should. Why would you even ask me that question? And I really feel like if I were talking to a male colleague, he would have already submitted his application. There would be no question of, do I fit the role 100%? Am I exactly what they're looking for? Do I really have the bona fides, to compete like this? And I think part of it is a two-way street. One way I think is systemically, we need to make things easier for women to access. And on the other side, I think we need, as a community of women, to encourage each other sometimes to, put yourself out there more, put yourself in some uncomfortable positions, take on some of those male attributes, confidence, assertiveness. I know sometimes, when we're perceived as being assertive, it can be negatively done in a way, but I think that there's a nice balance to walk, honestly, that I've been able to do, at least within my career. So I think systemic issues and also kind of community of women pulling each other together to encourage each other. Okay,
thank you very much indeed. Monica, let me come to you on this, and a sort of backup question building on what Angela was saying. Says, I feel that quite often we have to soften our language when we speak about this topic. For those who consider it unimportant, even for those who derisive, Monica. there's a real danger though, isn't there, that in not confronting it, we're doing more damage than good. Actually, we've got to confront the fact that people don't like it. Monica, your thoughts and the barriers that are created by this?
Well, it is a topic that, like I said earlier, people like to assume that it's not there, but actually it is a serious, serious issue. And I think from where I sit, I think we need to just create supportive infrastructure for us to have this conversation. And this is why we have the association that I am representing, Women in Safety Excellence. We have a safe space where we discuss these issues, and somebody will be affected at work by a subtle comment that somebody made, or they pick something in the newspaper and they'll bring it up and they'll ask the ladies, what do you think about this? And what do you think this person should be able to deal with? And in such a forum, then we're able to discuss as women, how do you go about it? How do you address issues that are particularly making you feel a little less of yourself, yet you need to communicate to the person who is afflicting them that it's actually an issue. And this brings about the issue of unconscious biases, because really we deal with a lot of unconscious biases. You'll find when you're in an environment where you have men, they will call you certain names like sweet girl, beautiful girl, young girl. Yet you're in a senior management level and you're discussing serious issues. Already that puts you at a lesser position when you're discussing pertinent issues, because this person looks at you like a young girl. The aspect of age, sweet girl, that you are still not supposed to come out arguing and saying this should not be happening. So the best way to go about it is to address unconscious biases. And at Women in Safety Excellence, we have trainings, and our trainings are not about women. We are working with partner associations in the security sector. Actually, we have created friendships with other associations. Yeah, we have friendships with PSI, PROSAC, ASISMP, PSAC. These are associations that are led by men, but we have created friendships so that we can be able to discuss how can they be able to co-opt women and deal with the unconscious biases that really make women be a little less. Like we'll go in a meeting and somebody will tell me, Monica, please have me tea. Small things. These small things that actually you feel like asking this person. I mean, you can actually serve yourself tea. We are here in the same capacity, all right? So the aspect of age, the aspect of us being feminine, most of the time is used against us, Martin. And because you don't want to come out and say it, and because you look like you're this aggressive woman, it's just, we just need to train our women. And in the wise, we are very keen on training our women to be assertive. Just say no in a very direct manner, and that person will not repeat it again. Sweet girl, I'm not a sweet girl. My name is Monica. What did you need me to do? See? So that's, you have dealt with it at a very, very, and if they repeat again, remind them. So the aggressive part of us as women, most of the time is put down by subtle comments by our colleagues that make us not come out confidently. Or somebody will ask, there's a position coming up, let's say a management position, and Monica, will you take it up? And someone will tell you, you're too soft. Let so-and-so take it. You say, no, I have the right qualifications. I'm going ahead to apply. So there's also the confidence aspect. Our women in the sector are coming up, not as we would expect, but the confidence levels, we are slowly working on that to tell them that assertiveness is a key element in dealing with sexism in the organizations.
Monica, thank you very much indeed. I'm going to move on. I'm going to come to Sue. So a question here from Pauline Nostrum, and she talks about whether sexism can be measured. And I think one of these things, Sue, you've been a leader of an organization yourself, to point out that gets measured gets acted upon. Can we do that meaningfully? And what's the process of bringing about scale and insight and some sort of a qualitative value to it? So is it possible?
I'm not sure. I think that's a really good question. I think probably around cultural audit would be the best way of doing it, and by really getting testimonies from men and women in organisations about what it's really like. That's probably, it would be really quantitative to do, qualitative to do that. That sort of quantitative bean counting, I'm not aware of any means, and I just think that feels sort of fraught, because you can say, oh, well, we haven't had any complaints, or we haven't had any grievances, or any appeals on promotion. Well, no, because the chances are women don't make those complaints. It's usually, in my experience, running a big organisation, it's men who are the ones who say, well, you know, but that had my name on it, or why haven't you treated me like that? Women just go, well, yeah, actually, we're used to being treated really badly, so I'm not surprised, you know, and I put my head above the parapet to go for promotion. Why am I going to go again and appeal? Because I will then be labelled aggressive, a troublemaker, as opposed to actually helping to understand why it was that they weren't successful, for example, on that occasion, as a development issue, or maybe even some learning for the organisation about how they conduct themselves.
Yeah, I mean, so on this note, I mean, you've been in the press, as you say, TV and radio, quite high profiled, I have to say, for speaking about this very issue. And I just wonder, for you personally, Sue, was that difficult for you to do? And number one, and two, what was the reaction of your male and female colleagues in particular? Just be brief. I know it's a big question, but just from your experience.
Yeah, it was really hard. It wasn't what I intended to do. A bit like today, I've talked about the more general stuff, and I find myself now talking about me. And I sit there and go cringe, because it's like, it's not about me, it's about other women and wanting actually men's behaviour to be better and to actually value what women bring. But the response of my former colleagues, the social media stuff that I promptly shut down because I knew what was coming, but some of my female ex-colleagues said the men have just been appalling. I did get trolled by a number of men who proudly told me they were ex-police officers, which was delightful. But I was absolutely stunned by the number of women, and indeed some men, to be fair, but predominantly women, vastly more women, and many serving officers, as well as retired police officers, telling me their story and thanking me for sharing mine, or frankly some of my story, because it validated their experience, and how utterly wrong it was, and also how disabling it is to perform professionally. So many women telling me stories that they left policing and felt they couldn't stay within that organisation any longer. And what a waste of skills, personality, what a waste of service to the public because of how some men treat some women. It's disgraceful.
Thank you, Sue. Appreciate that. Appreciate your personal insight as well there. Let me come to you again, Angela, on this. So can we ask you to be brief, Angela, because I want to get a few more questions in. And it's an interesting question, actually, because she turns this issue on her head. This is Cicely Gatiti. I hope I pronounced that right, Cicely. Good evening, panelists. I noticed that at times women in senior positions at some point do not support those below them, fearing competition. And they can gang it up with male colleagues to perpetuate sexism at work. And I guess the point is that this is not an unqualified good, that all women in senior positions are positive points of influence. Angela, have you sensed this? Have you come across this? And I'll just get a comment from you, Sue, then Monica. Very briefly, each of you on this, please. Angela?
You know, I think it's an issue of tokenism at the end of the day. You know, when you have kind of one woman in a leadership role, I think in the past there has been kind of a turf perspective. You know, I'm the one woman at the table, I've got to secure my spot. And some of that involves maybe palling up with male colleagues, you know, disparaging other female colleagues. I think that these are things that were more prevalent in the past. I see more today, a lot of women building each other up. And I think part of it is through the success of organizations like Women in Security, the Women in Security Forum as well. But certainly I have seen that. I think sometimes female colleagues can be harder on other female colleagues because we represent each other in the field. So when you have a female colleague, you don't agree with how she's doing something, you feel maybe she's a reflection on all women in security. And I don't think that men see it in the same way, certainly. And I think we need to get away from that concept. But in order to do it, we need to get out of this area of tokenism. You know, the concept I have one woman on my board, we're diverse. We've got one woman in a leadership role. She's the head of HR, you know, check in the box. You know, we are doing gender equity. So I think at the end of the day, it's a more complicated topic, but certainly I have seen on occasion women not support each other. But I would say from my experience, it's been more so that women have supported me a lot throughout my career personally. Yeah,
absolutely. I guess it's just the recognition that it doesn't always happen. But okay, Monica, just I wonder if I can put a little twist on this for you and Sue, that Purity Kinanu. I hope I pronounced that right, Purity, Monica. And she says, sometimes encouraging women is not enough. The idea, I think, behind Purity's question is that we're talking about encouraging women, but to a sense, the danger is we don't focus enough on the fact that women are at least as competent, perhaps more competent. And is there a danger we're not communicating the right messages in the way that we're talking about this subject? Monica, then Sue. Monica first.
That's a topic that has really come up in many of our forums, that what more can we do than encourage our women to come up? Number one is create supportive structures. Supportive structures are segments or programs, mentorship programs, to be able to, bring the younger generation to the fore. Like I said in the beginning of my opening statement, the entry level of security, you'll find a lot of ladies do not partake programs in security. So sometimes the challenge is sometimes the positions are there, but a lot of women don't have the prerequisite academic baseline, and their numbers are very few. So if you can be able to ensure that at the basic entry level, we are able to sell security programs, then the fear of actually getting there to wonder what's going to happen is going to be dealt with. When I talk about mentorship programs, the women who are already in the security space, and WISE is working very hard to ensure that we sell security as a lucrative area to venture into, is that we uplift people who are already in the managerial level to actually pursue higher programs to be in the leadership positions where they can be able to make decisions. All right. This involves the opportunities that are there for progression, then we're able to avail them. Number one. We also have the aspect of employment that, sometimes women don't have the time to be able to do, their roles and actually do academic work. The COVID-19 has been able to demystify that. People are actually going to online and actually taking up extra time to be able to invest in themselves. So what are we saying? That women need to take that time to invest in themselves in terms of professionally and academically, if they want to come out as professionals in this area. So I agree with Purity. Encouraging is not enough. They need to actually go a step higher and invest in themselves. I can tell you, Martin, men are not afraid to invest in themselves. They take up the opportunities very fast. But for us, I don't know why we second guess ourselves most of the time. So we are actually saying, let's actually feel confident to invest in ourselves so that when we talk about progressing and lifting others, like for example, I can tell you for free, sometimes there's an opportunity and you say, who's gonna come up? And everybody goes quiet. And you wonder what is the problem? An opportunity is here, but no one is talking. So what are we saying? That as women, number one, let's invest in ourselves, let's believe in ourselves, and let's create supportive structure. In our case, we have the Women in Safety Excellence, where we are able to give women this opportunity, where we are able to ask the government to incorporate women in the various spaces in security whenever they become available.
Thank you very much indeed. So let me get your take on this. This point about the best way of promoting the key messages one needs to put forward about tackling this issue of sexism in order to both engage meaningfully women and of course to engage men who may be on a different sort of viewpoint. Indeed, you've made that point already. So your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with both Monica and Angela on this. I think it's really important that it's not just seen as a women's issue either, because men within organisations have a responsibility to bring forward all their people of talent, not just those that might look or sound a bit like them. And that is the key, I think, in terms of bringing real change. Is again, as I said in my opening statement, it's very much a leadership issue, and I think it's about role modelling. And it's about role modeling how you bring and encourage, you mentor people who are different to you, and you bring them through. If you're a man, you think about the policies and the practices. So you might have great policies, but actually, what are those like in practice? And what does that mean for women? What does that mean if you're disabled? You might have ticked the box that said we've done an equality impact assessment or whatever is the appropriate thing, because of course we always do, but actually we don't really think about what it means. And I think particularly for male leaders, I think they really need to take an additional responsibility and step up, because it can't just be down to women.
No, fair enough. And I guess the point is that when you say it, Sue, I was thinking that's unquestionably logical. But of course, the fact you're saying it means it's not obvious, or it's not obvious to the point. No, exactly. And I just wonder what the barrier is to getting wider acceptance of that point. How could it be?
I think so many men don't see it. And to be honest, you know, when we're in work, and I think one of the joys of actually not being in a full-on organization, in a full-on leadership role, is it gives you time to think. You don't have time necessarily to have that space to think and to be and to breathe and to do things differently. When you're under pressure, and, you know, COVID has brought its own particular pressures into an already challenging world, you know, then thinking and taking on those sorts of changes is, yeah, we can't, I can't even think about that. We've just got to get through where we are at the moment. Well, to some extent, yeah, I get that. But the other bit is actually we always find a crisis, and certainly in policing, my experience in policing, we always found a great crisis as a reason for not doing real cultural change. So we do bits at the margins, and they made differences, they made progress, but they didn't really change things in the way that I think the people that policing serves, that the security industry more broadly serves, which is our communities, actually deserve.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to ask you all just for one final comment each. And I'm just going to give you 20 seconds each, which is most unfortunate because it's a major question. From a headline strategic point of view, what does the security sector need to do? Key strategic points need to be adopted in order specifically to tackle this issue of sexism. So just 20 seconds, Angela, I'm sorry about this, but we're running out of time. Your thoughts, strategic key points do you want to see the security sector do?
You know, I think at top of the list for me, you know, I think organizations like ASIS, SIA, and others play a really important role in the security sector. It plays an important role in the norms that we have as a community of security professionals. And I really believe that in order to see significant change on this topic, positive improvements, we really need to see those organizations work to get more women in leadership roles. And the response that we didn't have enough women apply is not sufficient, I think, right now. We really need to market these leadership roles for women. There are confident, talented women in the sector out there who, you know, I think we need to tap into for these roles. And my concern is that they will leave the sector if they don't have those opportunities. So I would say we need systemic modifications to how these leadership structures are set up to make sure that we have more inclusion of women who, you know, we can drive these changes through the sector and security. That would be my big change.
Thank you very much indeed. Monica, from you. So headline strategic issues, tackling sexism and security. What do you want to see?
Well, for me, I think we need to just remove gendered red tape that really limits women from really participating actively. The issue of maternal and reproductive health, that is something that people really use to actually put women down. That is something that we should actually come out and talk about. The issue of not being able to lift others, you know, the mantra nowadays, like Angela said, is rise as you lift others, because then we realize there's an inadequacy. We are limited. So you can't afford to be competitive, and you are limited. You can only complement one another. So it is a call out there for the women in our sector, not just in Kenya, but across the board. Yeah, because we are at an apex and we are few, then we can only complement one another. When there are opportunities, let's share, right? And whoever gets it, as long as it's one of us, it's a step toward increasing our numbers. Yes, and I want to go back to uptake of programs in security, because that's the baseline. Personally, I have a background in communication, and I found myself in security, you know, in the angle of business development. But we want more of us to come purposefully to take up security programs. Cyber security is an area that is very lucrative for women. Security management and other programs in criminology. When we do that, then we increase our base so that the apex is not so lean. then we can rise and grow with others. And then lastly is we have male gatekeepers in our sector, yes, and like Angela mentioned that these men, they need to be conscious that we are capable, yes, and we want to be put on the table on meritocracy basis, because we have what it takes, we have the qualifications, and sometimes we have attributes that are very key in security. We are very keen on detail. And when it comes to investigation matters, women add that extra eye. So these are things that men need to be aware of, that we are very good at, that can be able to supplement security in areas that we can be able to support. So that is my
Monica, I'm going to have to stop you there because we're running out of time, and I've just got to get Sue in for that final comment. Thank you very much indeed, Monica. Sue, final comment from you, if I would, but very briefly, if you wouldn't mind. We're out of time.
I think this is about education. This is about learning. And I think that men particularly, and some women, need to learn far more about what it is that takes for everyone to be able to succeed fairly. And so I think we need to take time and actually make mandatory training for men in terms of allies, bystanders, and supporters, not just of women, but of anyone who has a different characteristic than they do, because that's the only way we're going to be truly inclusive and provide this, get the best people, truly the best people, as opposed to those who are the usual suspects, into those leadership positions.
Panel, thank you so much. That was absolutely outstanding. We could have gone on, and I'm sure we would have liked to. It's probably the sign of a great webinar when you've got more questions you haven't addressed yet, and you've got panelists with more to say. But thank you so much indeed for your insights. A few final comments from me very quickly, if we will, because we are running out of time. Just so we've got a major study, women security officers. Can you encourage people to take part in this survey in those countries? We'll send you the link after the webinar. It's for men and women, of course, security officers, those at the front line. We want to know their views. So please, can you encourage them to take part in this research? Just to say that the OSPAs are open in Kenya, Romania, and the United States. So do get your entries in early. And in the UK, the Tackling Economic Crime Awards, they're open too. Get your entries in. Let's recognise those who are really good at what they do. The cyber OSPAs are coming your way. All these associations are supporting them. If your association is not there, it's worldwide, it's global, it's recognising outstanding performance in the cyber security sector. So do encourage, do get in contact with us. Finally, to say, we'll be going through this all over again on Thursday, when the topic is security and the supply chain. Is full resilience restored? Well, there are going to be panelists who are experts in supply chain and panelists experts in security who are going to be telling us why that's not the case, why full resilience has not been restored. So thank you once again to my panel, outstanding insights and comments. Thank you indeed to you, the audience. I'm sorry I didn't get around to all the questions. We were just too busy, too many. Thank you to the women in the company that I work for. In fact, other than me, they're all women, by the way. The two that helped me out the most on this are Hannah Miller and Christine Brooks. I hope to see you all again on Thursday, same time. But until we meet again, wherever you are in the world, stay safe.